The hitchhiker. I'm a truck driver. Can't say I've seen too many supernatural phenomena, but the strangest incident I could remember occurred during the middle of winter years ago. If you know about truckers, you know we like to drive at night since the roads are less busy. It was around 2 in the morning. It was brutally cold and snowing. I've probably driven a good 8 hours when I came upon this hitchhiker. Usually, when hitchhiking, it's safer to go against the flow of traffic. That way you can see the incoming cars headed your way. This person had his back to me and was heading in the same direction. It was dark and I didn't get a good look at them. They were dressed in black and looked like they may have had a pack on them. The person had their thumb out, signaling for a ride. I wouldn't have stopped under normal circumstances, but it was winter and about 50 miles to the nearest town. I passed them, stopping about 15 yards in front, and unlocked the doors. I waited a bit, then glanced at the passenger side mirror after the hitchhiker didn't show. It was too dark to make anything out, so I went outside with the flashlight to check on them. The person was nowhere to be found, and neither were their footprints. Midnight commotion. Truck drivers are only allotted 15 hours on duty before they're required to take an 8-hour break. I reached my limit and pulled into an empty lot one night. Aside from a brick wall on one side, it was completely open on every side, mostly tiny shops from what I saw. I changed into my boxers since it was summer, and even had the windows cracked open a bit. It was around 3 a.m. when I fell asleep. After about 15 minutes, I heard what sounded like two people talking, though I couldn't make out what they were saying. I'm not the most cultured nor educated person, but I can tell when someone were speaking Spanish or Milanese. The conversation sounded like garbled gibberish. For all I know, they could have been calling upon Satan himself. I didn't remember hearing it, but maybe their car pulled into the lot alongside of me, or could it just be two people taking a stroll at 3 in the morning, which is totally normal, right? Hoping they'd continue onwards, I tried my best to go back to sleep. The conversation got closer and closer until they were right outside my cab. Then it ceased. They better not try anything stupid. Just in case, I had a tire iron next to my pillow. It wouldn't be my first rodeo either. I've had to chase bozos off before. Mind you, I did it in my underwear too. Suddenly, something banged on the passenger side of the cab. Grabbing the tire iron, I slid out of bed and glanced out the windows. The lot was completely empty, just as it was when I pulled in earlier. I returned to bed for less than 5 minutes when something else banged on the driver's side door. I looked out the windows again, but saw nothing. I heard laughter and mumbling from somewhere outside. They're really gonna get it now. With the tire iron in hand, I hopped outside. "Alright, you punks, come on out," I shouted as I made my way quickly around the semi, expecting to see or at least hear someone fleeing the scene, but there was only silence. It wasn't completely dark due to a dimly lit streetlight on the corner, providing me with barely enough visibility. I confirmed I was indeed alone after checking all sides of the truck and underneath it. I went back to bed, and the rest of the night was uneventful. As I was preparing to leave in the morning, something caught my attention through the passenger side window. Beyond the brick wall was a large field with rows upon rows of gravestones. From above. It was almost 11 o'clock on a Friday morning. I was in traffic and stopped at a red light when my phone rang. The name Mom appeared on the console screen attached to the dashboard of my car. Annoyed, I sighed and answered the call with a click of a button on the steering wheel. "Hello?" I greeted her. "Son, is that you?" Mom asked. She hardly ever addressed me by name. "Yes, Mom, it's me." "What are you doing?" "Running errands before work. Did you need something?" "What time do you get off tonight?" 9:30. "Oh, do you work tomorrow?" The light turned green, and traffic was gradually moving again. I let off the brake pedal, moving along with the other vehicles. "No," I replied hesitantly. "I hardly get weekends off since I work in retail, so I rarely got to hang out with friends and family. We even had plans that day. Talk about throwing a wrench. My heart was breaking. "In that case, can you come pick me up tomorrow? Your aunt and uncle are also giving us some chickens to bring home, so make sure you bring the big cooler," Mom said. "Okay," I answered, rolling my eyes. Great, more stuff to throw in the freezer. Mom doesn't drive, and my aunt and uncle's farm was about 5 to 6 hours away. Mom had been there for a week, but decided she wanted to come home for the weekend. I really didn't want to go, but what could I say? She was my mom. Bummed out, I told her I'd drive over as soon as I got off work that night and bade her goodbye. I wanted to be as rested as possible since I worked Sunday. After work, I drove straight to the farm, stopping only for gas and some energy drinks. It was almost 3 a.m. when I turned off the main street into the tiny gravel road leading to the farm. I've been there a few times, but never out that late before. I was surprised how dark it was. It was pitch black. It wasn't a place anyone would want to be stranded. There was a stretch in the road enclosed by huge trees on both sides of it, their limbs stretching for one another and joining together at the center, creating a sort of arboreal tunnel. Some of the branches hung so low they raked the tops of bigger vehicles passing by, which sucked because I was driving a truck. Whilst driving through the tunnel, there was a sudden thud from the roof of my car, startling me. It was followed by another, then another, almost as if something were tumbling and skidding toward the back of the car from above. Whatever it was, it didn't sound like the scratching from branches. It sounded much denser, much heavier. The sound lasted only a few seconds. I stopped the car and glanced in the rearview mirror. Though it was dark, I could barely make out a person dangling on a noose from the tree limbs above through the faint reflection of the brake lights. I swallowed hard, my eyes glued to the hanging corpse in the mirror. All the hairs on my body stood on end, and my heart pounded loudly in my chest. Every fiber of my being was telling me to get away as fast as possible, but my conscience was telling me to stay and call the police. After what seemed like an eternal struggle, I finally managed to summon enough courage to examine the scene. I parked the truck, grabbed my flashlight, and stepped outside. I aimed the flashlight into the overhanging branches above the road and quickly scanned the ground below it. But the body had disappeared. Swiftly, I jumped back in my truck and floored it, kicking up dust and gravel. By the time I reached the farm, my heart was still pounding, and I could barely talk when my cousin greeted me at the door. I was stuttering so bad. Never again would I drive late at night, alone like that. Rest stop of horror. On a road trip home, my friend G and I stopped by a rest area one night. It was late, and we were the only ones there. There wasn't anything suspicious about the rest stop. It was clean and well lit. We used the men's restroom, and we were on our way out when we heard a kid crying uncontrollably. G and I glanced at each other. "Wonder what's going on?" I asked. "Don't know. Maybe a family just showed up," G replied. I was a bit alarmed, but kids cry all the time, so I didn't think too much of it. That was until we got outside. "Gee, I don't see another car. Maybe that kid needs our help," I said. We didn't see anyone come into the men's restroom, but decided to check anyway. Without a second's hesitation, G ran back in, and I followed. As loud as the crying was, it was hard to pinpoint exactly where it was coming from. G and I checked all 3 stalls and found nothing. We sprinted to the women's restroom as the crying continued. There was nothing in the first or second stall. I pushed the door to the 3rd stall, and it swung forward. Before I could see what was on the other side, something shoved it with a force so great it slammed backwards into the frame with a bang. I jumped back and collided with G, my heart skipping a beat. I swallowed, watching wide-eyed as the bathroom door repeatedly collided against the frame. All the while, the crying turned into what could only be described as some otherworldly tantrum. I wanted to run and get away, but my body wouldn't budge. "Come on, let's go," G yelled with a hand on my shoulder. I snapped back into the moment, and we raced out of the restroom, leaving the crying and banging door behind. "Open the doors," G shouted. Still in shock, I forgot the keys were in my pocket. "Open the frickin' doors, the keys in your pocket." I yanked the keys from my pants pocket. G probably sensed I was in no condition to drive. "Go!" G snatched them from my hand, pointing me toward the passenger side door. We both got in. He started the car, put it in reverse, and peeled out of the parking lot, almost losing control as we got back on the road. I've never been so afraid in my life. I don't even want to imagine what would have happened had G not been there. That's it for this episode. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. The link is in the description if you'd like to make any purchases from the Pocket Shop. Thanks for listening.